today with the threats of Medicaid cuts and everything, there could be no better time in the history of the struggle for universal health care to actually get these ballot initiatives and other strategies passed. This is the best time to get major interest and major involvement, major engagement if you've got the right messaging, and and therefore the best time to raise big bucks, like the $1 million, for example. So I think we should always keep that in mind, just in terms of if we start feeling pessimistic, there's really the timing couldn't be better for this. I assume everybody agrees. I hope. Show of hands. Um, so anyway, this course basically, usually the way I've done it in the past, I've done this about 3 times now. Uh, it spans 5 weeks, one Zoom a week. Usually it's an hour to an hour and a half at a time. Hopefully that most people can make it. And the basic order I work with is first to try to get across to people that fundraising doesn't have to be feel like a big burden. It doesn't have to feel scary. Most people that haven't already been drawn to fundraising as a path in life basically have a negative attitude toward it. So I try to spend some time in the first meeting to get people to realize that it can actually be one of the highest, I hate to use the word spiritual, but one of the highest spiritual paths in life, because it's really helping people serve their highest purposes in life and get in touch with what their highest purpose in life is, what they want their kids to think of them when they're on their deathbed and after they die, things like that. So in some ways it crosses, if you use a Venn diagram, it overlaps a lot with therapy and helping people really discover their purpose in life. Um, so it doesn't have to feel a burden. It can feel rather exciting, and much easier than people think. And then I spend the rest of that first hour and the next session basically going over how to actually use your first degree contacts, those 100 or 200 people in your cell phone, to then lead you to people that do have money. You may know one or two people with real money, but most people don't. But the people know people. And so after people do an exercise back home after the class, they discover that in fact they might know 10 to 20 people um, indirectly through their first degree contacts that actually have big bucks, or maybe a third degree person. But you start to be much more optimistic about how you can connect with people with money. Um, and then there's always a sharing session every Zoom where people talk about what worked, what didn't work, and I try to help people sort of problem solve, mostly uh, figuring out what they're not doing or what they could do better. And then we then go into the next class or the third class, actually crafting the right kind of email, text, and follow-up phone messages, um, and the people learning sort of basic tricks and tips, like you don't want to start out asking for money. Now, that's not true, by the way, with foundations. Usually foundations want to know right away, how much do you want? But with individual fundraising, which is my specialty, you want to first ask for advice. And that basically makes it much easier for someone. Everybody loves, most people love giving advice. Um, Also part of that, by the way, part of that first and the second meeting is to go help people basically make sure that if they don't already have a really brilliant fundraising project, and it sounds like the people in Washington do, but if anybody, basically, you want to have a project that when you describe it in a 30-second elevator pitch, the potential funder says, "That's brilliant." That's the reaction you want to get from people. And that's really one of the most, I guess, challenging tasks, is to come up with something that can evoke that reaction. And that means usually that it has to be something that's an original or an original variation of an existing strategy. And it has to be something that's scalable, winnable. And another thing that can make it brilliant is if you also bring on as a partner, part of your team, someone that also already has a brilliant track record. That third thing is not at all necessary, and it can often be very hard until you've got some traction, but it sometimes can be very easy. But if you have those three ingredients, very likely that funder is going to say, potential funder is going to say, that's brilliant. And then you're already more than 2/3, through the door. And then the third,
Gary,
yeah.
could you repeat that? I got a distraction just as you started the three elements. Could you go
So
just
yeah,
repeat?
so you want to come up with a project that, in fact, will evoke that's brilliant reaction from the potential funder. And to have that kind of a project, it has to be either something that's really an original idea or a original variation of an existing idea. And I can help you brainstorm and discover that idea. It has to come from you. It's not from me. I may have some brilliant ideas, but it has to be something that you feel you've discovered, you've created yourself, or it could be something you've discovered on AI that has worked in another state or even another country, that and you could steal it from them because maybe nobody in your state really knows about it. Or it could be a combination of something you've read about in another city, another state, or another country, and you've figured out a modification of it, which makes it even more original. And then it has to be something that's, as I mentioned, that this is not necessary, but if you have another member of your team that has a brilliant, impressive track record, like you've managed to recruit some famous athlete or somebody that was a beloved governor or whatever of your state that comes on board and has huge name recognition that's joining your team, that added third thing can make it even more likely to get that brilliant reaction. And then the third and the fourth, and really all the rest of the sessions is, as I said, there's 5 or 6 sessions, goes into how to handle resistance, and sharing what works, what doesn't work, and what you need to finally set up, if possible, a face-to-face meeting, and how to handle that meeting, and how to mostly listen, and then how to respond with a big thank you. Thank yous are really critical, that include all of the advice that you've gotten, so that funder really feels that you've heard them, respected them, and in fact have incorporated their idea or a good percentage of their ideas. So that gets them more trusting of you, because that's a major thing, is they don't know you. You have to create trust. Well, how do you create trust? How do you create a trusting relationship? You create it by asking for advice, showing you've heard the advice, you've incorporated the advice, you feel very grateful for the advice, and that sort of starts really opening the door. Then they start trusting you, and they start really liking the project even more because you've already incorporated some of their own ideas. And then they're very likely at that point to say, well, what do you need? What's stopping you? And then you say, well, money. And then they'll say, well, how much? And that's exactly where you want to be. And you better have a good answer. You better have a really well thought out budget, have a really thorough FAQ that responds to what you've discovered would probably be all of the pushbacks that people are likely to give to you. The more prepared you can be, the better. And then I also have a whole session about how do you find wealthy people that you actually have no connection. The people you know and the people they know, nobody knows how to get to so and so. But there are ways of getting to these people. And so we talk about some of the ways to get to those people. For example, through reporters or through or people that have written their biographies, that have developed some rapport. And various tricks and tips on how do you get to those super rich people. And then I guess now that probably this year there's likely to be a major epidemic, at the rate we're going, where a lot of old people are going to be dying, it's really important to also know how to do legacy fundraising so that people will actually put your project into their will. And that's where you can get really big money. You might get a donated apartment building where you can have free office space and free housing for your organizers. You know, it could really be a game changer. And so I think that covers, most of it. Well, I guess one other thing I talk about is how you convert the one-time donors. You probably all have a bunch of one-time donors, how you convert them into becoming monthly donors, regular donors. So we talk about that as well. And one thing I try to do is offer some private one-on-one coaching being available for people to take the class. Also, I only they've always been free, but I've decided this time to sort of experiment, and I'm either going to ask either some minimal fixed fee and then pay what you can, uh, and then I'm either going to give all that money back um, to each student if they make all the classes, they don't miss any, or I'm going to experiment and maybe at the end, maybe tell people that at the end we're going to vote on this pile of money that I've raised from everybody that's paid for the class, and we're going to decide which project to donate it to. So that's the my own fundraising. I myself don't need the money. I'm doing it for free. So does that give people a good idea? You can ask me some questions. Feel free. I don't mind being put on the spot.
Okay. Folks, if you have questions, just throw your hand up or, casually or do the react button. Questions, comments? Mike, you're muted.
This sounds like much more than fundraising. This sounds equally messaging, and I like that.
Yeah, when I hear most people talking about how do we engage, the other thing that went off of my mind is really getting somebody to join your team that's very good at social media and knows the kind of wording to use that really engage people. And normally, social media people are very mercenary. They know that their lifespan is only going to be at 2 or 3, 4 years. They got to make as much money as they can, and they charge a lot. So you have to be very persistent in finding that rare social media person that cares enough about your cause, maybe because their one of their parents is about to be bankrupt because of our healthcare system, and so they have a personal interest in what you're doing. But they're out there, and it's also not rocket science. You might find someone that's majored in social media and needs a project, and they're in graduate school and university. They can make it their dissertation, but it does take some, beating down. And by the way, to get somebody for a summer internship, you better start now, because I've tried many, many years to get interns, and I'm always either too early or too late. So timing is everything. They're actually already, lining up summer internships. I myself is kind of an ignoramus about social media, so I'm also projecting that this is something I need as well, and I'm about to hire somebody, in fact.
So Gary, you said, oh, Lloyd, your hand is up.
Lloyd, you're muted. Lloyd, you're muted.
Yeah, I got it. Just a practical. Is there a fee for this course, or is this something you offer as on a
No, I said it's
pro
going to
bono?
be a pay what you can basis. I'll probably suggest a minimum. I'm not sure what that would be, maybe $20 or something. Um, Maybe $10 if it's a college student. And and then you'll either get that back if you make all the classes and don't miss any, or it goes into a pool of money and we all vote at the end who's got the best cause, and the money will go to that cause, that project. It's not going to go to me. I don't need it.
Let's see.
Yeah, Kathy.
Kathy?
I just wanted to tell you thanks for putting this together and especially offering it for free. That's really, really nice. So thank you for doing that.
What's not for free? It's going to be like
Oh,
very minimal.
sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, very
But
minimal.
that
It sounds like
actually
it's
will be for free. If you don't miss the classes, you get the money back. Yeah.
okay. Well, little to nothing, let's say.
Yeah, little to
I
nothing.
think that's very nice.
Yeah.
Anything else, Kathy, right now?
And Barbara,
Yeah, I'm wondering about that first memo out to, you know, the letter out to all your contacts, your personal contacts. I'm looking for advice. You ask them about advice? But how do you
Advice and
move
contact.
yourself toward the rich advice?
Yeah, you're looking for advice and you're looking for people they might know that if they love this project might be in a position to help. And you're not asking them in your letter to them, you're not asking them to give you names because this is probably very personal stuff. You're asking that if they're impressed enough with what you're doing, they might then be willing to forward your contact information to their wealthy friend. Just to talk a little bit more about that, when you make your list, it's usually a spreadsheet of the 100, 200 people that are in your phone. There's 5 columns on the top. And the first column is, is this person wealthy themselves? The second one is, are their kids or their parents wealthy? The third column, you don't have to write this down because you'll see it when I send you. The third is basically, have they worked for people like CEOs that are wealthy, or has one of their colleagues wealthy or become wealthy? And then the fourth is, what about people that are alumni of the university they went to? Because usually people that are fellow alumni, even though they don't know you from a hole in the ground, are usually more willing to at least open an email. And then the last one is, are they major networkers? Do they already have a Rolodex of several thousand people? So they're likely to know somebody wealthy. And usually when you go through all these, the cells start, becoming alive with, yes, this person might know somebody that's wealthy, either through work, through relationships, through parents, through alumni, through networking.
So, and then somehow you bring it back to your thing, if you start with on your thing, but when you said alumni, it just did a thing when we were doing projects for the university. That was, alumni was a very, once you had it fleshed out.
Yeah. That reminds me of another it reminds me of another trick, is that someone who has been a development director for a university knows lots of very, very wealthy people. Now, in that position, they're obviously not allowed. They've signed all kinds of agreements to keep these are the crown jewels, to keep that all secret. But if they've gotten fired, or if they're retired, and they really love your project, they might at least be willing to talk to this wealthy friend of theirs that they know cares a lot about universal health care and let them know about your project. Yeah, Kathy. Kathy, you're the one in Washington?
No, I live in Corvallis, Oregon.
Or that's Carolyn. Washington State.
I think that was Catherine Lewandowski, I think. But
yeah.
She's not here anymore. She dropped out. There was someone that was talking about getting on the ballot in Washington.
Yeah,
Yes, and
that's Catherine.
she has two Zooms at this time, so she's.
Oh, that's too bad, because I wanted to say something to her, but okay.
Well, go ahead and say it because we're recording this.
Okay, well, I assume you all know that ballot initiatives that really care people that bring out liberals, that like legalizing marijuana, putting the right to abortion access in the Constitution. These are things that have really swung elections for Democrats big time. It's been the main reason, the only reason why Democrats have won in otherwise somewhat red states. And so that has to be really milked for all it's worth, I think.
Yeah. Oh, Kathy.
Would you mind, or would it be possible if I share your contact information for this course with people who are outside of healthcare
Yeah,
activism?
yeah, that's a really good
Okay.
question. The reason why is that I don't want to bother doing this for free unless I've got 15 to 20 people involved, which means I need probably 4 or 5 other organizations at least. And so that's really critical.
So how can I get your contact information for this?
Well, Chuck has it. Chuck and Mike both have it.
Okay, great.
I'll
Thank
send
you.
it.
And they
Thank you
also
very
have
much.
they also have the course description outlined.
Okay,
And by the
thank
way,
you.
I've been very involved in the climate justice movement. So if you know anybody involved in any climate justice campaigns, I'd really like to get them involved. And one of the problems I have is that some of these campaigns and organizations have this ideology is we want to be totally volunteer. We don't want full-time paid organizers, which I think is insane. I understand the reasons for it, but I don't know any movement that's ever really truly succeeded without paid at least half-time organizers, and usually there's some paid full-time. And so for example, I really like the Sunrise Movement, but every time I approach the one here in Philly or the one in DC, because I just spent 2 months in DC, because usually the argument I make is to look at if you can raise $50,000, $100,000, you can get some paid full-time organizers and really grow much bigger, much faster, get a lot more done. And it just there's an ideology that's very anti that. And so it's been very frustrating. So if you know any Sunrise chapter that's more open or any other kind of climate justice group, I'm not that interested in groups that are, oh, let's have a big protest march like 350 or, petitions. I'm mostly interested in people that really realize we need massive nonviolent resistance. Like the paddle in Seattle, which is another reason. If you go to my Facebook page, you see a picture of the paddle in Seattle, which is why I'm sad that Catherine's not here.
So, Healthcare for All Oregon has, oh, go ahead, Barbara. You first.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, Healthcare for Oregon has been through 3 organizers, also known as executive directors. And because they haven't had a disciplined fundraising, they haven't been able to afford it for more than a year at a time. And so it's kind of the circle problem.
Yeah.
My idea was just that if a group like Sunrise didn't want to have any paid people, there may be some people that can't afford to be in that are active in the movement that at this point can't afford to be in it.
Yeah.
And so that you would be able to keep that person involved.
Yeah. That's why when I went to their groups, they were all white, for one thing.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, well, I'm actually in the Poor People's Campaign. They work really, really hard to center the impacted people. But they have difficulties. They have lots of difficulties.
Yeah.
Well, Chuck.
Yeah, I think, and part of what you put your finger on here, there's this sort of anti-capitalist ethos that anything having to do with money is somehow beneath us, and that it's self-defeating.
I
But Gary,
usually quote to these people that I say, there was a journalist who was interviewing Gandhi one day, and he confronted Gandhi and he said, I know you're actually raising millions of dollars for this massive public relations operation you have going in Europe to shame the British Empire. But you try to tell everybody how poor you wear this loincloth and your whole brand is poverty. And Gandhi shot back. He said, yeah, it takes a lot of money to keep me in poverty.
Yep. I just saw that.
So what, in terms of, do you have a schedule, Gary? I mean, a proposed schedule, or you're forming it
Well,
in terms
I'm telling everybody to apply by March 16th with an RSVP, an email to me saying they'd love to take the course. Here's the kind of campaign they're working on. They know it's a commitment of at least an hour and a half a week. And give me, in case I get more applicants than I really want to handle, because I'm offering this private coaching. I want to know, the more they can tell me about their project, the better. Include a link to their one pager, for example.
So is there a form that you have?
Well, that's basically it.
Okay, so the trick is just to send you an email and say,
Just a cover note. Yeah.
okay, and again, we want them, let's just make sure we get this right.
Yeah, I can
Obviously,
put it in chat. Hold on.
yeah, so name, organization, what the organization's mission is.
Yeah.
Anything more than that?
And understanding that it's once a week commitment for at least 5 or 6 weeks.
And didn't you say a link to a one pager or something?
Yeah, that would be the ideal thing.
What, Barbara, was that?
He had mentioned having a link to a one pager
That explains the
that would be
organization?
your organization or your goal in the project, why you want to be in what you
Well, I
want.
mean, everything a one pager.
Project, what's the project that you're trying to sell?
Yeah.
So Lloyd got his hand up.
I think.
I was
Lloyd?
going to also ask if you have some sort of a paragraph or just some sort of introductory remarks about the course, because I'd like to send it to some friends of mine and members of the Green Party of New Jersey. You'd mentioned you're interested in climate activists. So it'd be a lot more compelling for them to join if I could give them something
That's a good question. Yeah, good
in
suggestion.
writing or to give them an idea of exactly what's involved.
Okay,
Other than my just sending them an email.
I'll send a short paragraph to Chuck, and then Chuck can get it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any testimonials from alumni?
Yeah, I have lots of references from students who've taken the course that I can send. If you send me
That would be
a reminder.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us today. RSVP by 3/16, and you're projecting to start the course, what, a week or two after that?
Yeah, but it'd be nice to, poetically speaking, to start it on March 23rd, the first day of spring.